All right, guys, what a race. The Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. Thanks for joining me. I'm fireside to talk about this. I figure I'd take an FDR approach and go fireside chat with it. Really exciting race today. Really different than what we usually see. Kind of a different top 10 than we usually see. I mean, here's the top 10. Obviously, Takuma Sato won the race, so good for him. Dixon again in second place. I think he's been in second place in this race like 3 or 4 times now, so that's got to be frustrating for him. Third place, Sebastian Bourdais. It was good to see him running up front again. Fourth place, Newgarden, Rossi, Hinch, Ericsson, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Simon Pagenaud, and Felix Rosenqvist. So really a different top 10 than we usually see. So that was really fun to watch. Few things I want to talk about with this race. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. All right, one of the first things today was the fuel strategy. 2 stops or 3 stops. It was like going on a road trip with kids, which is why I don't have kids. I mean, I don't have kids for a lot of reasons, but that's the main one, is road trip speed. And IndyCar teams dealt with a similar thing this week. How many stops do we take in this race? So it was kind of 2 trains of thought. It was a 3-stop strategy or a 2-stop strategy. Most teams went for this 3-stopper. You saw in the first 15, 20 laps of the race, there was a lot of teams diving off track to go get some fuel and new tires. Whereas there were some holdouts. I believe Sebastian Bourdais was one of them. And then I think one of the other teams, I forget right now, somebody will say it in the comments, went for a 2-stop strategy. So that was really interesting to see how that played out. With most teams going 3 stops, my theory behind that was the Reds today were not good. They weren't faster, but they were degrading just as fast as they usually do. So my thought with the 3-stop strategy is that teams were trying to minimize how long they had to keep those red tires on. I know Sebastian Bourdais had the red tires on for his last set, and they only lasted like 10 laps before they completely fell off, and he was just kind of trying to maintain his position instead of give up spots. So obviously red tires today were not ideal. It'll be interesting to see how that goes in the future. I know Barber's resurfacing over the winter, so it's interesting to me that that racing surface changed so much since last year. Obviously last year maybe they didn't have too much useful data because it was a monsoon, but that's a really interesting thing for me is how those tires change year over year and how that racing surface changes year over year. So it'll be really interesting to see what the tire situation looks like next year coming back to Barber with a new racing surface and then knowing kind of the degradation issues they had this year. The second big thing today is we had a couple Honda cars with issues. Colton Herta had engine issues again this week. He had some back at Coda with a full engine blowout last week. This week, it was something with like a fuel pump or something like that. I think it was a fuel delivery issue to the engine. I'm not sure if that's actually Honda's responsibility, but it's something worth kind of thinking about as we go further into the season. Again, Graham Rahal had a Honda issue. His was like a throttle sticking issue, something like that. Not sure if that is Honda's fault either, but obviously 2 Honda cars, you kind of have to ask questions at that point, see what's going on. The thing is, though, is if you look at the top 10, the Hondas make up 8 of the top 10 spots. So the Hondas are definitely fast. They're quick. That's not the issue. It just seems like there might be a little bit of a reliability issue. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out going into the super speedways where speed matters, but its reliability is really the key there because you're going pegged at 250 laps. It'll be interesting to see at like Indy how those Hondas hold up. So that's something I'm going to be really paying attention to as we go forward into the season here. And I have to say it's surprising because Honda, you really think reliability. I mean, every pizza man in America has a Honda that was built in like 1998 and it's still running, delivering your 2-topping thin crust pizza. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that whole Honda issue plays out. Another big storyline today was the Penske's were kind of having trouble at this track. They weren't qualifying well. They weren't running well. I know Joseph Newgarden was having an issue where he was pitting much quicker than he thought he was going to have to because his tires were just getting chewed up so quick. His car wasn't in balance. It was just chewing up those tires quick. So that was an interesting thing, and it's not something you really see Penske's dealing with. Usually Penske's are dialed in, and it's just a matter of controlling the traffic around them. So that was a really interesting thing to watch today. My theory was Joseph Newgarden's braces were weighing the front of the car down so much that it was biting into the track harder. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. His orthodontist is probably super talented, and he's better looking than I ever will be. But that was a really interesting thing to watch today is those Penske's having trouble. And then finally, looking ahead, we got Long Beach next week, which is one of my favorite races on the schedule. Obviously, we saw Bourdais' crazy pass last year. So it's good racing. Excited to see more of that kind of stuff. And then Looking ahead, and David Land mentioned this in one of his videos, and it was on Marshall Pruitt's podcast, Kevin Lee's radio show. But it looks like we have more engine manufacturer talk. So it seems like in the month of May, there might be a couple announcements of maybe new engine manufacturers coming in the next couple years. The ones they're chatting about right now are BMW, Hyundai, Mazda, Toyota. Obviously, there's a lot of links to racing there with certain drivers on the grid, stuff like that. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. I personally drive a Hyundai, so that'd be sweet to see a Hyundai engine in there, because I drive a 2012 Elantra, but then I could be like, yeah, I drive an Indycar. Nobody would care anyway, but that would be really exciting. And maybe not, if it's not Hyundai, maybe it's Genesis, because that's kind of their performance brand. So I think it makes a lot of sense for a Korean manufacturer to come in, obviously with their huge push in the last 10 years in the US market, having factories in Georgia, stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing how that plays out. All right, guys, so that's it for me. I hope you're enjoying these videos. I know this is only my second one, but I got such nice feedback on the first one, so going to keep making these, see what happens. Subscribe if you want, but if you don't want to, I won't hold it against you, because really I'm just a kid in front of a green screen at this point. So let me know if you want to see anything in the comments. Feel free to hate on my shirt. I got it at Macy's yesterday. I think it's cute, but feel free to rip anything about me, and or give me any suggestions, or give me nice compliments. I appreciate those too. But we'll see you next week in Long Beach.